All right, guys, we'll get going. So, first of all, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and thank you for supporting the event. Hopefully, the girls found it valuable, worthwhile. Last year it was the first time we ever did this event, and we did it we did this presentation in person in the Overland Park Fieldhouse classroom. Unfortunately, this year, for obvious reasons, we are resorted to going virtual. So I know this isn't as interactive as we would like, but it's better than nothing. But again, if you have questions as this goes on, feel free to chuck them in the chat. And then either we'll answer it during the course of the presentation or we'll get to it at the end. And again, hopefully people leave here with everything that they need to know. So my name is Adam Lamb, Director of Coaching at Puma FC. For those who don't know, we haven't met me. Also on the call already is Craig Scriven. Currently, he is the Vice President of Soccer at USSSA, previously the Associate Head Coach for Creighton Women's Soccer, who was there for many years. So Craig's, I'm going to go first, get the boring part out of the way, and then I'll let Craig take over from me and give you the good stuff. So just a little bit briefly background on Puma FC. That on the screen there is kind of what our culture and our mission statement is as a club. And the biggest thing for me is we want to be a player-centered club. This ID clinic, in a way, is one of the things that we do for our players. It's not for me. It's not for necessarily the club. It's for the players. This is not a recruiting tool for us. It is a service that we want to put on for the players to get them something that they need to move forward with their college career to the next level. So again, this is a big thing for us to make our program player-centered and do something for our players that is solely for them and not necessarily for anybody else's gain. A lot of work goes into it from our end, but it's for the players at the end of the day. So that's kind of the reason why we put this event on. So college recruiting, the title says it all. It is a process. So there's people on this call, those players at the ID clinic last night who were freshmen or eighth graders, all the way through to people who are seniors and only got 5 or 6 more months left of high school before they're going to college. So it is really a process, and people enter and leave the process at different ages, and it's different for everybody. So again, the process itself is player-centered because it's different for everybody. Players have different wants, different needs, different ways they go about this process. So it's completely different for everybody. So our jobs as DOCs, as coaches, is to guide players through this process and help them get wherever it is they want to go. So moving on to my next point, the player themselves need to think about what they want. This is their process. It's not mums or dads. It's not coach. It's all about them. So the players need to drive the bus on what it is they want. And there's a few things I've listed there on things they need to think about when they are looking at this college process. So the location of the school, where is it? Do they want to go miles and miles away from home and be comfortable? Or do they want to live within an hour of mum and dad? What are the academic goals of the player? What's the cost? Private school, super expensive versus an in-state school, not so much. Again, how far away are you from home? What's the climate like? Do you want to go to Michigan where it's going to snow half of the year? Or do you want to go down to Florida where it's going to be beautiful 12 months of the year? The coach of the program, what's his personality or his or her personality? Do you get on with that coach? Do they make the recruiting process good for you guys? So a lot of things to consider when it comes to the athlete thinking about what they want to do with their college, what their college goals are. And that's just a small amount of them. There are more that the player needs to consider. COVID-19, the reason why we're on this call, and the reason I want to make this clear why there was no D1 schools there last night is because D1 schools are currently on a recruiting freeze. They cannot recruit until January 1st of 2021, and that may even get extended, I'm hearing, into March, if it hasn't already. So that limits them from attending games, showcase events, holding on-campus visits. and limits their communication with prospects as well. So if you're a freshman, sophomore right now, this probably doesn't affect you in the immediate time frame. But guys that are seniors, this is obviously going to be something that you have to navigate through over the next few months. And we all work in industries where we're being affected by this, right? It's not just recruiting. Us as a soccer club are dealing with this on a day-to-day basis. You guys in your businesses and your line of works are dealing with it on a day-to-day basis, and it's affecting everyone. So Craig's going to go into a little bit later on in the presentation about how it's going to affect recruiting longer term, based on his experience and knowledge of the college scene. We held one last night, right? ID camps and clinics are a great way for players to get seen by the college coaches they want to get seen by. But be selective about which ones you go to. They're not free. Ours was extremely cheap. All right, we pretty much cover our costs by running it. But some are very expensive and some are more expensive than others. So be selective on the camps you go to. Consider how many coaches are going to see you while you're at that camp. Consider everything that was on my first slide, right, about all the things the player's looking for from their experience at college. Think about all those things when you select the ID camp you're going to go to. And again, how many coaches are going to see you there, right? Is it just going to be one school, one program, one coach set of eyes, or is there going to be multiple college coaches there, like last night, where you get seen by multiple people? So before I pass on to Craig, I'm just going to go through a couple of top tips that I have based on my experience. So it's really important to remember that the college coaches need to know the recruiting rules, but it's also important that the athletes have an understanding of the recruiting rules as well and what college coaches can and can't do. Craig's going to go into that a little bit more in terms of the different levels in a few minutes, but it's important that both parties, the college coach and the athlete, know what their expectations are when it comes to communicating and dealing with college coaches. What are they allowed to do? What are they not allowed to do? So that's important for the kids to understand what those rules are. I know the boys' presentation's later. The boys' process is slower than the girls. It starts later. They tend to mature later. And the girl starts a little bit earlier. All right. So even though you might think you're only a freshman or sophomore in college, in high school right now, it is a time to start thinking about this process and what you want from it. Okay. There's more girls programs out there than there are boys. Okay. There's more money tends to be available in the women's game. And again, Craig can talk about that a little bit more from his experience at Creighton on the women's side there. If you've not committed by your junior year and senior year, don't freak out. Okay. We've got loads of kids that are juniors and seniors at our club and other clubs around us that aren't anywhere near making a decision. That's totally cool. Okay. This process, again, is different for everybody. It's quick for some, it's slow for others. It's a process. Come up with a plan, sit down with your coach. How are you going to get to wherever it is that you want to go? And again, later on, Craig will share with you a few tools that he has that can help with that process as well. Video footage. Okay, we filmed the scrimmages last night. Once they're uploaded and in our system, I'll be able to share. But we as a club invested in 2 video cameras over the summer that we're going to have out at fields readily available to our coaches. Hopefully we'll have them out at the Showcase KC this weekend if it doesn't tip it down with rain all day Saturday. So gaining access to footage of yourself playing is really important. From there, you can create highlight reels. You can send those highlight reels to coaches. You can create YouTube channels. You can create little iMovies. The players will know way more about that than even I do. All right, they're way more technological sound than I am. But getting that footage is really important. We help with our video cameras, but there are other ways you can do it. You can film it yourself. You can hire a professional to come out and film a couple of games. There's many ways you can do it. But I think that's really important, especially in today's day and age with COVID and things going even more virtual. There's nothing stopping players sending off their game film and their highlight reels to college coaches. That's it from me. I'm going to pass over to Craig. I'll introduce Craig real quick. I've got a great picture of Google Images there. Craig is currently the Vice President of Soccer at USSSA. He's the Executive Director at College ID Me, which you'll talk about here in a bit. And he was, again, previously was the Associate Head Coach of Women's Soccer at Creighton. So Craig, over to you. And then any questions as we go through these guys, chuck them on the chat, and between Craig and I, we'll hopefully answer as many as we can. Over to you, Craig. Can anyone hear Craig?
Mm-mm.
You there, Craig? I'm going to try and unmute Craig. Give me a second while I figure this out. All right, Craig, is that good? I'm not able to unmute you on my end, Craig. Oh.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you now. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
There we go. Sorry about that. So I had a call there. My microphone's broken. Nice to meet everyone. Like Adam just gave me the introduction. So I'll go over a little bit. I coached in college, a couple of different institutions for 10 years. One, obviously, Creighton University in the Midwest. The other was University of Rhode Island up in the East Coast, both Division I, both women's programs. So I'll give you a little bit of information. Adam touched on it a little bit, but at the Division I level, the dead period has actually been extended until April 15th now. So there's going to be no off-campus or on-campus recruiting visits at the Division I level, at least through April 15th. Let's say Division II, Division III, NAIA, junior colleges, they're at a different level. So you would have seen some of those coaches working with you over your camp in the last couple of days, and they follow a few different rules. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through really each level and give you a couple of rules just in case you didn't know them. The big thing about Division I and Division II is you must, if you want to be considered by these schools and you think you want to play at this level, you must register at the NCAA clearinghouse. So that would be a big thing. But you can be recruited without being registered in the clearinghouse. But if you go along the pathway and you want to go on campus, if you want to take a visit, then you must be registered in the clearinghouse. So that's easy to do. You just go on Google, just NCAA clearinghouse. You're going to complete information. It's also going to be a bit of a tracker for you. So it will help track your progress. It will give you dates, important dates to submit information. It's really going to check, it's going to track your GPA. It's going to track your academics. And then you're going to complete information in there like amateurism forms, SAT, ACT scores. So again, it's a valuable tool. There is a fee to it. So don't be surprised if you go to register. The NCAA wants to make money any way it can. So there is a fee, but it's something you need to do at the Division I, Division II level. Again, at the Division I and Division II level, there's going to be no coach contact until June 15th of your sophomore year. So what that means is a coach cannot reach out to you. So you can contact a coach as much as you like. You can reach out to them, say, I'm interested in your school. You can send them their schedules, your schedules for tournaments, for games. You can attend a camp, but there can't be any initiation from the coach back to you or any recruiting conversations with that coach if you do bump into them on campus or if you go to one of their camps. There's not going to be any recruiting conversations until, let's say, June 15th of your sophomore year. So if you're a freshman or if you're a sophomore, if you haven't had much contact with coaches, don't worry, they're not allowed to. Visits both unofficial visits and official visits you cannot do until August 1 of your junior year. So again, getting on campus, going to have a look around the school, meeting the coaches, meeting some of the players, you cannot do now until your junior year. Difference between an official visit and an unofficial visit. An unofficial visit is, again, usually initiated by you, and then all the costs are paid for by you. And they're just a day visit. So you would go up and you'd spend probably 2 to 3 hours with the coach, with a player, walking around, learning a little bit about the program, learning a little bit about the facilities, and getting an idea of what it's like. An unofficial visit is where the institution will pay for you to go. So that one is they're going to pay for your petrol or your gas. They're going to pay for your flights. They're going to pay for your hotels. They're going to pay for your meals. That's really a hard sell on their part then, is they're trying to get you on campus. So if somebody ever comes to you with an official visit offer, that means they're highly interested in you because they're going to spend some money. You're only allowed to go on 5 official visits. So that's one thing to consider. The NCAA will only allow you to go on 5 official visits. And then really there's no tryouts at this time. I mean, there's legislation they're trying to push through to allow tryouts, but right now there's no tryouts. So that's where camps become very important. And I would say there's 2 different kinds of camps at the Division I level that schools run. There's an ID camp, and then there's a summer camp. The ID camp is what coaches will look for to pretty much do what it says, is identify, and it's to see if you fit what they're looking for. And traits could be like highly technical, a specialty skill set, athleticism, speed of play, and sort of see how you do in that environment. If you get invited back or they ask you to come to a summer camp, that's going to be more valuable. Obviously, it's usually a higher cost because there's dorms that are in there. The schools have to pay for dorms. They have to pay for food. But if you're really, I wouldn't say go to every school and go to an overnight camp. But once you identify the schools that you're really interested in, those can be invaluable for you because you're now in their environment. You're working with the prior players. A coach might put you on a team that goes against an incoming player of that year, or you might even get to play against some of the current players. So really could be a 2 to 3 day evaluation for you to be in front of the coach and really show them what you can do. So that's where camps can be invaluable. If a coach keeps asking you to come to a single day ID, I would be pretty wary on that. I mean, really, I used to tell a kid, look, you've been to one ID, we don't really need to see you at another ID. You need to start coming to our summer camps because that's a little bit more extensive. As Adam said, there's a lot of Division I schools at the women's level. There's around about 336, I believe, 337. So they vary from obviously number 1 to number 337. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Division II, again, must register in the clearinghouse. Same contact rules, same visit rules. So you've got that June 15th, you've got that August 1st. Coaches can they cannot speak to you prior to that June 15th, but tryouts are allowed at the Division II level. So you could actually go on campus when you're allowed and actually participate in a training session and be involved with the team. So tryouts are involved at the Division II level. Division III, that recruiting's quite a lot later. They won't really start building player pools until around about the spring of the 11th grade. So, just towards the end of your junior year is when they start building their recruiting pools. The institution manages the requirements on entry versus the clearinghouse. So where you had to be able to clearinghouse Division I, Division II, at Division III level, each institution will tell you what you need to do to be allowed on campus for an official visit or an unofficial visit. There's less recruiting regulations. Visits are allowed prior to your junior year at Division IIIs. There's no athletic aid. So at Division I, Division II, scholarships are spoken about. At Division 3, there is no scholarships. It's all academic based and need based. And it's a little less committed in regards to the time that you would play. You have a full season, but then in a spring season, you don't really have a spring season. You have one date that you can compete, and then you have, I think it's about 12 dates that you can practice. So it's a lot lower commitment wise, highly academic Division 3 schools. So it's really focusing on that. Then you have the NAIA, very big in the Midwest. Less restrictions on recruiting, less regulations and rules. There's no contact date. So if you're an 8th grader now, if you're a 9th grader, coaches can be speaking to you. You can go on campus, tryouts are allowed. And then a lot of times there's a high international base because of the less restrictions and less regulations. So there's usually a high percentage of those NAIA schools which will have international players. And then you have junior college, NJCAA. The recruiting pool starts around about the senior year. The clearinghouse will track you, and it will, as you're getting tracked, it will tell you if you're going to be a qualifier or a non-qualifier. A qualifier means you qualify to go into an NCAA Division 1, Division 2 program. If you're a non-qualifier, and that non-qualifier can come from any reasons, from academics, it can come from any reasons from test scores, it can come from you don't have enough core credits. And that's the big thing is if you want to play in college, you need to get with your advisor at school and say, I really want to play at the NCAA level. I need to focus on my core classes because we have an unweighted GPA and we have a weighted GPA. We are not going to look at the weighted GPA. We're only going to look at the unweighted GPA. So, cooking classes and certain, like if you're taking tennis or something like that, that's not going to be counted in your GPA. So you need to work with your advisor and say, I really need to focus on my unweighted GPA to allow me to be a qualifier. If you, for some reason, you don't become a qualifier, you can go to the junior college as a non-qualifier. You can play for 2 years. You can get your associate's degree and then transfer to a 4-year institution. So it's kind of like a second chance in regards to if you don't if you don't qualify. I speak to a lot of kids. Obviously, they're doing this for the last 12 years. And Adam touched on it. You really need to find and do research to find what's going to be the best fit for you. It's all well and good saying, I want to play Division 1. I'm only going to play Division 1. That's all I'm looking for. But you never want to shut a door or close a door. Like I said, there's about 337 teams at the Division 1 level. Number one, Stanford, UCLA, Florida State, whoever it is, UNC that year is going to be a lot different Division 1 than, I'll say Dixie State, because Dixie State they're transitioning from D2 into D1. There's going to be a big, big difference between that Division 1 school at the number 1 spot or the top 10 and that Division 1 spot that's 336, 337. There's going to be some Division 2 schools. One of them is very local to you, University of Central Missouri. They're a very, very competitive program at the Division 2. They pretty much every year will go into their conference tournament, their regional tournament, and qualify for the national. You could go to the 337 Division 1 school and never play out of October. Always be done because it's a low Division 1 program. Or you could go to a Division 2 or Division 3 or even an NAIA program and compete in postseason play, regional play, national tournaments, and really you get an extra year of competition because if you're a top program at Division 2, Division 3, NAIA, you're playing an additional 6-7 games a year over a 4-year period. That's really like playing 5 years. So don't get hung up on that Division 1 if you find a good fit at Division 2, Division 3, NAIA. I played NAIA. I had 2 offers. Well, I broke it down to two teams. I had St. Louis University and Park University. I didn't know the difference between the NCAA or NAIA. I went purely from a financial decision, but I think it was the best decision I ever made because I played a good institution. I got a good education. It was smaller classes. And my senior year, we made it all the way to the national final game. Sadly, we lost, but we got to the championship game. So for me, that was a great choice because I got to compete in a national final where I wouldn't have been able to potentially do that. SLU's a good program, but I don't think they got to a national final during my college years. So make sure you just, like I say, don't shut any doors. A couple of things Adam sort of touched on it is you've got to find the schools that meet your needs, whether it's distance away from home, whether it's size. You play in a lot of tournaments. You go on vacations with your families. You're in the Midwest. You've got a lot of schools of different sizes, different styles right by you. Anytime you can get on campus, I would get on campus. Even if it doesn't have a soccer program, you should go on a campus. So you just get familiarity on what you like. For example, my daughter, she's 17. So she wants to go to the East Coast. Well, we can't get on campus at the East Coast right now. So what we're doing is we're doing a tour of the Midwest, and we're going to go to University of Washington, St. Louis, because that school is very similar in architect, in size, in design to one of the schools on the East Coast that she's looking at. So even if it's not a school that's on your radar, I would, whenever you get an opportunity to walk a campus, to just see what the student life's like, just see what the atmosphere is like, the size of the school's like, even if it doesn't have a soccer program, that can help you when you do get onto the campus that you know is yours because you've been there, and you've been there enough, and you've been on different campuses to get an idea. Like I say, your big thing is your support chain is obviously going to be your coaches, your club, your high school coaches, your parents. For those of you that are older and even younger, if you've got sisters or your sisters and brothers played with people that are now at college, I would look at past teammates, reaching out to teammates that are potentially in college now, that have gone through the process. They can speak to you a little bit. Your high school counselor is going to be very important for, like say, for the college classes that are required. And then those, like say, those ID camps, the educational camps, the programs like Puma are putting on for you. That's going to be your support chain. Like I say, for the parents that are on here, I think Adam touched on it a little bit. We'll absolutely speak to you as college coaches. You need to have that trust that we will speak to you and, like I say, build that relationship. But we want to speak to you after we've developed the relationship with your daughter. That's the big thing, is because we're going to have the relationship with them. We're obviously going to take care of them when they get on the campus. We're going to be part of their support chain. You're going to entrust in them or entrust in us to look after them. But we have to have the relationship with them prior to building the relationship with you. So, like I say, parents could encourage your child to reach out to coaches, encourage your child to ask the questions. When the time is right, like I say, whether it be on a phone call, whether it be on an unofficial visit, an official visit, that's when we start building a relationship with the parent. And then assistance, the parent's going to obviously assist in the financial aspect of this. So I'll break down a little bit of what you can expect financially. Not necessarily what you're going to get, but the situation you're walking into. So right now at the Division I level on the women's side, it's 14 full athletic scholarships that we have to break up however we choose. At the Division II level, it's 9.9. At the Division III level, it's 0. And NAIA junior college, they fluctuate. So one program could be fully funded, meaning everybody gets a full ride. One program might have 2 or 3 athletic scholarship. So that would just be something at the Division 2 level you would have to, Division NAI and junior college, you would have to ask. Even at the Division 2 and Division 1, not all programs are fully funded. So the 14 and the 9.9 is what you're allowed to have as a maximum. But that means a program might not be fully funded. They may only have 10. They may only have 9. Right now, schools in the NCAA have allowed extra eligibility for players that haven't had a season. So scholarships now are really in flux, because you know, as a college coach, you expected potentially, you know, X amount of players to leave your program next year. Well, that's not going to happen now if they choose to stay. So you're going to see a lot of athletic departments that will have reduced budgets, or will have no athletic aid available, because they will have to honor students that are currently there. So I think what you're going to see over the next couple of years is you're going to see the athletic scholarships not be as large as they previously have, and a lot of people are going to speak to you about packages. A package would be partly athletic, partly academic, and then partly grant money. So that's one thing I think a lot of institutions are looking at right now, is building financial packages that will be athletic, academic, and grants. There's nothing wrong with getting a package deal. When we were at Creighton, we used to get package deals all the time. Because like I say, if you've only got 14 scholarships or you've got 13 scholarships, you've got to try and build a squad of 26 to 28 players. So if you're academically strong and you get a high academic award, then what a lot of times will happen, the athletic award will come down, and then we'll look to bump it back up with grant money. So again, don't fixate on the athletic award. What you want to sort of speak about is packages whenever you're speaking to a college coach about financial situations. If you're looking at grants, the big thing you got to speak to is you got to make sure you speak to the soccer coach of that institution. And grants are normally based at the institution. You need to ask if it's a countable grant. So there's two types of grants. There's countable grants and there's uncountable grants. A countable grant means it's countable by the NCAA. So it would go against the financial budget of the athletic department. So like I say, if you got a grant that was countable and you didn't tell the women's soccer coaches, or you didn't tell the athletic department, that could potentially hurt them with their athletic scholarships. So make sure you always ask that question. And then the other thing I always tell people is make sure it doesn't matter what your financial situation is, especially in today's world, you need to apply for a Pell and a FAFSA application. So they're government awards. Some of them, like I say, are awards, and they don't need to be repaid. So they would be big things that everybody should do. Anyone that ever walked into my office we didn't even ask their financial situation. It doesn't matter if you're, you know, a multi-millionaire, we would still tell people complete Pels, complete FAFSAs, because you never know what the government can get you. And then in turn, that helps us surround you with better players and stronger players from an athletic standpoint. So I would say the long-term effects of COVID, what you're going to see now is what we sort of spoke about, is reduced budgets. So from a recruiting standpoint, I mean, I used to be on the road pretty much every weekend somewhere. I don't think that's going to be the same for most institutions coming out. I mean, I still have friends at big programs like Ohio State, Arizona, that I speak to them quite regularly, and they even say that their budgets are being slashed. And I mean, so if you're looking at those Power 5 schools with not having as much recruiting budget, then your mid-majors, your lower Division 1 schools are going to be in an even worse place because they don't have the TV revenue coming in. So, I mean, you're going to, like Adam touched on, video is going to play a crucial part of recruiting in the next couple of years. ID camps and those camps on campus will play a crucial part in the next coming years. Tournaments will still do it, but you're going to see, more and more national leagues try and start up more programs that are pulling coaches away. And I mean, everybody knows in a game, a college coach is usually only there for like 20 minutes. So if you don't touch the ball a lot in 20 minutes, if you don't play in that first 20 minutes, you don't get seen a lot. So any video you can do, and I would always start off with a highlight video. Don't send a 45-minute video into a coach. What we want to do is we want to get a highlight video that's like 3 to 4 minutes, 5 minutes, shows, good parts of your game. Even parts of your game, say you lose the ball, but then you work hard and you're part of winning the ball back. I mean, that's an invaluable thing for a coach to see. So don't necessarily just go on the the top 10 highlights. Maybe if you do give the ball away, if you do mess up, but then you track back and you're involved in winning the ball back, that's going to be something a coach wants to see. So, I mean, that, and let's say with budget, so putting yourself out there is going to be a very big thing. I would say top tips is one, knowing what you want. That's the big thing is know academically what you want. Know size of the school with what you want. That way, when you do narrow it down to 3 or 4 schools, you're going to be able to pick based on your desires. I'd say you're a student athlete, not an athlete student. So that's the big thing is you want to find a school where you think you're going to be successful at. You want to find a school where you're going to meet your playing needs, and that's a conversation you have to have with yourself. Is playing to you important your first year? Is you want to have like 4 years as a starter? Because some of you will walk on campus the first day and you'll be in a position where you have to take the place of a 5th-year senior. So like I say, that school may be looking at you to be a redshirt, or that school may not be looking for you to contribute until your junior year. So is that something that you're happy with? So, I mean, that's what you got to do is you got to find out what you want from the college experience. So you're happy once you make your decision. And then last thing, like I said, I left college. One of the things I thought is I don't think there's a great pathway for players once they commit. I saw too many kids that would step on campus that weren't ready from the first day to try and take that 5th-year senior place, what it takes mentally to compete at the Division I level or the Division II level or the Division III level. You're going to be away from your support system and your family. So what we've done is, with a lot of friends of mine in the college game, they're all ex-college coaches, is we've created a pathway and an education program for players that it can start at the 8th grade and it can go all the way through to when you're 21. It could be something that you join once you commit to get you ready for college. And I know we're working with Adam. We're going to get you some more information because in the new year, there'll be opportunities. And what we want to do is, again, create that support system and help really guide you, whether you have committed, whether you haven't committed, is guide you to making a good choice. And then once you do make that choice, is getting you ready for that first day of preseason when you got a fitness test or you're thrown into an evaluation game.
Anything you want me to show them on the website, Craig?
No, I think probably best if we just send it. I think that'd be easier.
Cool. So I think that pretty much wraps up everything that we had. Absolutely amazing information there from Craig. I'll go to the chat and kind of go through some questions, and between Craig or I will try and answer them before we let you guys enjoy the night. So got a question here, Craig. What was the name of the grants that you listed earlier? Maybe just tell them how to spell those and what they are.
Yeah.
So they know.
Pell Grant is P-E-L-L. So you can just Google Pell Grant. And then FAFSA is just F-A FSA, I think. Let me
Yeah.
make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, FISFA. It's
Matt
FASA.
Jensen has thrown them in there for you guys on the group chat. Cheers, Matt. Another question, Craig. Are these recruiting websites a necessary tool? How do coaches use them? So there's a lot of recruiting websites out there that charge subscriptions and various different things. So, I kind of know my answer on this, but I'll let Craig go first.
Yeah, so I used to get probably, was it 2 years? But I'd usually get 500 to 600 emails a week from people that wanted to play at Creighton. Obviously, Creighton's academically a strong school. It's very well known in the Midwest. It's part of the Big East. So, it's a stronger program. I didn't get 500-600 emails when I was at University of Rhode Island. But we would get emails from individuals. We would get emails from the services, the recruiting services. Unless I see something immediately in that email from a recruiting service, most of the times they get deleted. So let's say, what do I need to see? I need to see that you're a national pool kid. I need to see that if it's coming from internationally, I need to see that you're a professional club. If it's coming domestically, I need to recognize your club within the minute I open it. So a lot of times we were, if I don't recognize something as soon as I open that email, I'll get rid of it. You're more likely to get my attention from a personal email. One thing I will tell you is make sure you have a professional personal email. I deleted emails because based on what the email said about the person. But you're probably more likely to get through to us that way than the companies that say, we'll host your video, we'll put this online, we'll blast this out to all these coaches. That's not really what we do. I'll use College ID Meet, for example. It's like we do have a profile, we do have video, but we don't blast it out. What we do is once we finalize your list of schools, like the 8 to 10, is we make initiations with just those schools. And then we use our personal relationships to push those emails through. So we don't use like a server that Adam's sort of speaking about. So a monthly subscription, a one-time fee, I think you're better off just writing it from a Gmail, writing it from your own Apple ID or something like that. But when you do write an email, is make sure it's personalized to the coach, and make sure you mention things about the school that's going to grab the coach. So, for example, if you had emailed me and said, "Hey, I'm from Kansas City. I want to stay in the Midwest. Creighton is a school but of interest to me because I want to get into pre-med, or I want to get into business, or I want to get into law. The Big East is attractive to me because I want to go and visit, DC. I want to go and visit Chicago." Those things get my attention. If you just say, "Hey, I really want to come to Creighton. It's a great school. Good record last year. Please come and recruit me," that's not really going to get my attention. You need to pick some things out in the school that allow a coach to know that this is a viable option for us to recruit. The other thing is, I understand you're going to cut and copy some things, copy the base of your email, but make sure, it's not too generic, because you'll be surprised how many emails we get. Be like, "I'd really like to come to the University of Nebraska in Lincoln," and that one never really went down well with me.
Yeah, I think Craig makes really good points there. I think the companies that charge a monthly subscription, I don't think they're needed on for most players. I think what you can do is lean on your coach and their relationships with these college coaches. Me, for example, this whole clinic last night was put on based on my relationships with those college coaches here in the Midwest that came. Craig's on this call right now because of my relationship with Craig. So recruiting's a lot about relationships. So lean on exactly, if you wanted to go to Creighton, for example, and Craig was still the associate head coach, I could help there by, yes, you emailing, but also I reach out to Craig as well. And I have that conversation about you as a player with him. And that's how you get the conversation going. Of course, he wants to see game film. He wants to see you play in person. But like Craig said, it's about getting the coach's attention, and sending them a generic email isn't going to do that. And sending them an email from a stupid email address isn't gonna work either. So it's about being professional, right? These young athletes, young boys and girls, have to learn how to communicate with adults at the end of the day, because like Craig said earlier, it's the relationship with the player that the college coach wants. Yes, they're going to talk to mum and dad, right? They want a relationship with you, but they need a relationship with the player, because that's who they're going to be working with on a daily basis should they choose to go to their school.
Right. And just touching on that, like I say, is professionalism. At the Division I level, it's all about results. So, and even at the Division II level, and even if you're an institution that like doesn't put pressure on winning, that coach still has a livelihood. So when we recruit you, we're recruiting you to come in and one, be part of this team, one, be part of this institution, but you're part of our family because your actions have an effect on the coach and the coaching staff and everybody there. So one thing I tell everybody is go and look at your social media feeds and find out what that says about you. Because the first thing that we ever do is once we found a player that was interested is I would Google, Adam Lamb. I'd Google Craig Scriven. Then we'd Google Craig Scriven Facebook, go Craig Scriven Twitter, Craig Scriven Instagram. We would do everything to find out who you are. Because you could be a great player on the field, but if your social media feeds tell us something else, then we're not going to bring you into that environment, because then you jeopardize our careers and our success. So that make sure you're very wary of what goes out on social media, because, like I say, we do our research.
Any other questions that you guys might have? I know it's Thursday night. It's been a long week. Me and Craig have got to do another one of these here in 30 minutes with the boys. If there aren't any more questions, that's totally fine. You guys all have my email address, and feel free to contact me at any time with any questions in regards to the recruiting process. If I can't answer it myself, I have multiple resources like Craig and other people who can help me answer them and get you a good answer to the question. So it doesn't look like there's any more questions. So I'll take this time to thank you, Craig. That was awesome information. I know it was a lot of information. So digest that, parents. I have recorded this, so I will share it with you so you can rewatch it. And again, if you have questions following that rewatch, or when your daughter watches it, please reach out to me. I'll type my email address in here so you guys have it. If you don't have it already, lam@pumafc.org. So thanks very much. I'll let Craig go and get a cup of tea before the next one at 7:30.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks, everybody else. Appreciate it.